past, we were taught, don't flow water into that. Something bad is gonna happen. So you just gotta kind of take it and get to the bottom of the stairs. I think that's still the biggest misconception. If we're gonna go into a basement and we have to go down those stairs, we need to be flowing down those stairs while we're going.
Our guest today is Jesse Marcotte, one of the top voices in Metro Detroit and the United States. He's training chief of Northville Township Fire, serves on the FSRI Training Advisory Committee, and is on the ISFSI Board of Directors. This episode is for firefighters who want to get some of Jesse's expert knowledge on basement fire tactics, building construction types, nozzle stream technique, and how to get better culture at your department. Grab a beverage and a notepad, and let's buckle up. All right, well, I've been really looking forward to this one. Since we've connected, we got Jesse Marcotte from Northville, Michigan Fire Department, and you wear a lot of different hats, Jesse. First of all, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I think this is fantastic, so I appreciate it. My career job is as a training chief in Metro Detroit, and an organization I've been at now for almost 23 years, which is crazy. It's gone by so fast. But in addition to that, I've had a lot of really cool opportunities to make some really good friends and learn a lot of important lessons. One of those other hats is through the International Society of Fire Service Instructors, so ISFSI. And ISFSI is a really neat group because you talk about, well, just their mission statement, inspiring, supporting, elevating fire service instructors. So with them, I've been able to teach kind of coast to coast, north, south, east, west, variety of different topics, and it's a fantastic organization. And I currently serve as the second vice president of ISFSI, so that's a fun one. Another organization that I'm really thrilled and humbled to be a part of is FSRI. So that's Underwriters Laboratories Fire Safety Research Institute. So that's a really big one. That was kind of a lifelong mission there to get some little role there. So in addition to getting the coffee, and I work remote, so it's probably cold coffee by the time it gets there, but I'm in the education and training department there as an education and training coordinator. So fantastic team. I joke it's like a fellowship without the degree. I'm not getting the degree, but I'm getting all these fantastic lessons that I can hopefully share, on things like this today. So.
Well, what were you teaching on here at FDIC this week?
So at FDIC this year, I taught a class Monday morning, a 4-hour workshop on probationary firefighter training programs, setting and raising the bar. And the concept there is, in the fire service, we may wear many different hats, whether it's, as a firefighter, company officer, chief officer, fire prevention training. There's so many different hats to wear. But we all start the same way, and that's as a probationary firefighter. So if we can focus in on the probationary firefighter training programs, which hits all the skills, including culture and leadership and everything else, then we set people up for success, and that's our goal in that program.
What's the biggest misconception out there about firefighter culture building?
I think one of the misconceptions is that you should just let it happen and let it, just happen organically. But that's hard if we're just trying to let our culture happen organically. Look at all the directions it could go. So the concept of culture is deliberate. That's a big one that we really emphasize organizationally. And we have some excellent leaders in our organization that focus on culture. In fact, one of them covered that segment during the class the other day. And I think that would be it, is I would try to maintain positive control of the culture in terms of making sure it's representative of what the group wants, but identifying what it is and where it needs to go. So I think that would be a big takeaway on that end.
Cool. Want to know, Brian Podziadlik is a big fan of you. I said, hey, we got Jesse Marcotte coming on the show. What should I talk to him about? And he was like, culture.
Oh, yeah. We could talk about culture
right.
all day. I can simplify it, actually. We have a thing through our department called the Whole Person Initiative. So we want you to be, a good person on and off duty is the concept. And we've really simplified it after working on it for several years. And it's really the 3C model. So we talk about culture, but we put culture with character, competency, and conditioning. So everything we do fits into one of those three categories, with character being the foundation of that. So if you think of it as a triangle, very strong geometric shape, character on the bottom, competency, stuff like this that we're talking about today. And then we have the conditioning side, which also can blend into competency, going out and doing training, getting a good sweat, doing some physical fitness at the fire station, behavioral health. But that's our several-year culture journey summarized in the 30 seconds.
I love it. That was incredible.
Yeah.
Very precise. So I'd love to pick your brain tactically. You've
Yes.
got a lot of good experience, and you understand kind of the practical side of it, and also you have a grasp of kind of the more intellectual side of it. So walk me through analyzing a basement fire. You roll up, you kind of hear, what's going on. You see, okay, I'm dealing with a basement fire. What next?
Yeah, so basement fires are important to me for several reasons. In 2006, we had a near-miss event in our department, and I happened to be there for that. In fact, I feel like a lot of those decisions that didn't make it a super great incident were really my fault because I didn't know better at the time. Because I looked at a basement fire kind of as any other fire, if you will, and did not have a healthy appreciation for some other things that really play into that. Building construction, and by building construction, I mean what type of basement is it? A walkout basement, an egress basement, those sorts of things. And then fire dynamics wise, I really believed at that time that the coolest place would be at the bottom of the stairs, and you just had to be uncomfortable and get to the bottom. So when we talk about tactics, flowing water wasn't my goal. I didn't, all those old kind of myths of the fire service, like don't upset the thermal layers or you can't flow water into smoke. So those things really wasn't that I tried to be wrong. It was that was where the fire service was at that time. So when I think of basement fires, it's not just the conditions presenting, but when we talk about the importance of seeing as many sides of the building as we can, that is one of the first key factors, because basements are basically classified in the three categories. Like if you read the Understanding of Fighting Basement Fires technical report from FSRI, the three basement types that they use are no exterior access, limited exterior access, and full exterior access. So then when we talk about that, fire-wise, people are like, well, what does that mean? What is
right. What is practically?
So the way we identify that back in our SOPs at our department is we have a standard basement, little windows that you'd expect to see, kind of that standard house in the Midwest with a basement. Then we have egress style basements, which have larger style windows. We quantify that tactically by saying if it's a window big enough for a firefighter to fit out of, that would be an egress window in our system.
Okay.
Meaning limited exterior access. And then full exterior access, we just classify those as walkout basements. So if there is a door of some sort there, that's how we're referring to that. And the reason it matters so much is not just that the fire's in the basement, it's what's going to happen. So lots of modern fires are ventilation limited. So in those basements where you have those large openings, those big doors, big windows, if there's a failure of that window, whether we did it or the fire itself did it, we have the potential for a rapid change in ventilation. So that limited, that fire that's in the vent limited phase now could get all that oxygen it needs, and we could see a big change in fire conditions inside. Worst case would be that happens below grade while the crew's coming in on that first floor.
Interesting.
So there's a lot to it, and at the end of the day, it's really actually quite simple.
On my home department, we had a situation where we were set up at the street level because that's as close as we could get to the building. The deck gun couldn't get under the eave, and we didn't have a ground monitor on the vehicle that day, so we had to do it with handline operations. And we struggled, not having the right tool for the right job. It's that simple. I'm Paul Neely at Task Force Tips. I'd like to talk to you today about the blitz fire. If you don't have that low attack angle, a lot of times you can't make the front of the building. If your monitor won't go down to 10 degrees, you can't get in the front door, you can't get in the front windows, you can't get in the front garage door.
So what next then? So you walk in, you're starting to have that threat of just throwing a ton of oxygen on the fire. What would you prescribe next?
Yeah, so one thing that we really try to push is to initiate the fire attack on the level the fire is on. So in the past, there was a lot of, again, I think we just didn't fully understand because we didn't have the research that we have now. Mm-hmm. But the concept in the past was if you flow water from the outside to the inside, we're going to push the fire, so to speak. And what we know now is stream type and nozzle patterns, that there's a right way of doing things.
Which is what?
So big part of this is exterior fire control from the exterior to the interior. We want to be as close as safely possible. We want that, I tell people the 3 S's all the time. We want it straight, number one. So whether it's a smooth bore or a combination nozzle, it needs to be a solid or straight stream. Okay. So straight, steep. So we want that line very vertical. So it's going across the ceiling and cooling the surfaces. So that's, again, a lot of people don't even know. Obviously, you guys do, but how a nozzle in the American Fire Service is designed to work. So steep, straight, and steady. So we're not trying to whip that nozzle around. We're trying to coat and cool the surfaces, get the water where it needs to go, and then that helps us either reset that fire to a point where we can find another means of getting in there, or now we can worry about getting the water on the fuel package or on the base fuels. But the technique for it is important. It can be a little bit more interesting in a basement fire scenario.
Yeah, what do you do
but
there?
The real key is that's why we need to do the 360s when possible. So once we see that, or once we suspect, and we can see it on the alpha side or on the front of the building with our thermal imaging cameras with a good scan, thermal size up. We could also see it obviously by walking around and visualizing the fire conditions. So part of that is to knowing's half the battle, as G.I. Joe said. Once we know, then it's where do we go kind of thing. So once we make that notification over the radio, that sets off whatever the cues are in those different organizations. But the best way to do it is to initiate the attack on the level the fire's on. So when we have the opportunity to flow water through that window into that basement, it has a profound effect, because it's not just that fire compartment, it's where are all those toxic and thermal products going in that structure. So are the people on the first floor, are the people on the second floor? So the quicker we can put water where it needs to go, right time, right place, better off everybody's going to be.
Yeah, what's another misunderstanding that you feel like is in the fire service that you're passionate about when it comes to basement fires?
So I think in those scenarios where we do have to go down the stairs, and maybe it is that basement scenario where there is no exterior access. So standard basement, you had a fire down there, and this is a scenario maybe where the organization decides, all in all, this is going to be what we're going to do. So one of the things that you hear a lot in the fire service today, flow path, right? 20 years ago, you didn't hear flow path as commonly. Now you see it all over the place. So that flow path is really a combination of all of the things that are occurring in that fire. So the fire's over here. We have an area of high pressure, and it's always moving from high pressure to low pressure. So if you think about that, when we open the front door, we've just created a pretty significant area of low pressure, right? So we have the high pressure in the basement flowing up those stairs into the area of low pressure. In that, we have a thing called convective flow, which is really the part that we can visualize of the flow path besides the smoke that we're seeing. It's kind of the thermal end of that. So we're seeing the convective heat transfer through the camera. We're feeling it through our gear, right? But that convective flow, that's where in the past we were taught, don't flow water into that. Something bad is gonna happen. So you just gotta kind of take it and get to the bottom of the stairs. I think that's still the biggest misconception. If we are gonna flow water, if we're gonna go into a basement and we have to go down those stairs, we need to be flowing down those stairs while we're going.
Okay. Because you need to get it on there as quick as possible, in whatever form possible.
So at the top of the stairs, in the studies, the speed of that convective flow, those convective currents, we're going 10 to 15 miles per hour at the top of those stairs. So if you think about it moving at you that quick, that's a fair amount of energy. Those temperatures at the top of the stairs, we're closer to 1,300 degrees. So you have it's hot, it's heavy, and it's moving fast. So if we don't do anything with it, the firefighter and thermal environments, our gear is not made for that. So the quicker we can coat and cool those surfaces going down, seal off the flow path, push that back to where it's going, the better our attack is going to be. And again, whether we're tough enough to take it or not, if we're trying to have a good impact on the civilians that could be in that structure, maybe there's a search occurring at the same time. Obviously the average civilian doesn't have their own set of fire gear sitting next to their bed.
Right.
So we want to protect that environment as quickly as reasonably possible. So flowing and moving into that convective flow is in the exhaust of the flow path, essentially. That is something that we could and should be doing versus we should never be doing.
You personally, do you have a preference if you do have to go down those basement steps between a fog nozzle in straight stream versus a smoothbore? Do you have any personal preference there?
So that's a great question. And here's what we know. They're both fantastic options, both nozzles. But what we also know is when we're making a push, so to speak, whether that's down a hallway, whether that's down the stairs, both should be on straight stream. So whether it's the solid stream of the smoothbore or the straight stream of a combination nozzle. Also with that, if you're not using an automatic nozzle as an example, then that smoothbore or that selectable gallonage nozzle has to be all the way open. We don't want turbulence in the flow. Turbulence entrains air, and more importantly, due to droplet size, doesn't cool the surfaces. So we need straight streams or solid streams. I personally don't really have a preference. It's back to what's on the end of that line. So I know we have at our department, but it might not be the same at your department that we go do training at, or it might not be the same on a scene that we go to with a neighboring department. So we don't have the option of screwing it off and putting a new one on real quick. They both work excellent. You just have to know how to use it.
Well, it's awesome. Pearls of wisdom. I knew we were going to get a lot from you. I'd also love to pick your brain about building construction. I would love to tap into kind of your experience. What's a time in your career where you encountered a particularly tricky building construction situation?
Yeah, so there's been a couple times. One was back to that basement fire, and was that lightweight construction or not, and is that why that floor ended up collapsing? And so that was one end of it. The other end of it was, for 15 years I was on our urban search and rescue team, and obviously a big part of that is structural collapse. So that's an area that I really enjoyed learning more about because it went back to building construction, which is one of the things I really liked. So we had a structural collapse of a commercial building due to a gas explosion, and in that, if you think of it as a strip mall, were several types of different building constructions in terms of are these load-bearing walls? Where do we shore? So it's not just throwing a shoring system in there for the sake of it. We have to be shoring up the right part of the structure for that to make sense, or for that to work. So that was a tricky one. That was a complex one.
What's another misconception out there about building construction?
I think with building construction in general, I think one of the misses is understanding the actual 5 building types, or the 5 classifications, from type 1 to type 5, and what that means for us. And then furthermore, I think the biggest miss is correlating the effects of the fire on the structure based on, is that type 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So we have to tie both. It can't be just one or the other. It has to be the relationship, in my mind, of both of those things.
How does your strategy change between the building types? That you could write a book about that, but just give me the ABCs of 1 through 5.
Yeah, quick ABCs. I tell people to think about this as a scale of combustibility, because that's really what it is. So if it's if it's a 1, it's so non-combustible that it's called fire resistive, right? All the structural members are fire rated, they're protected. So we'd find those, in high-rise buildings and parking structures, hospitals. So very strong structurally. Type 5 would be the most combustible, right? So type 5 is our wood frame building construction. So a lot of our houses, you see it now in a lot of hotels and schools. So, and in the middle of that, so we have all wood products on the side, on the 5 end, and we have, protected steel and concrete on the 1. So in the middle is type 3, like our Main Street USA, and that has a mixture of products. So we have combustible materials to hold the roof up or the floors, and then we have our masonry non-combustible products to hold the walls up. So I think if we can understand that a little bit, that really helps us. And when we talk about nozzle application, how we flow water, where we flow water, then each one of those has, kind of its own unique thing. Would we expect to see sprinklers in a lot of type 1 and type 2 structures? Yes. But in those type 2 structures, what doesn't work well for us is, if you were to look up even here, the residential environment has smooth surfaces. We have smooth walls, drywall, we have smooth ceilings. So our nozzles are really good at distributing that water out and cooling those surfaces. If you think back to like a type 2 building, so go to the grocery store and look up right?
yeah.
We see the roof, we see the metal trusses, the bar joists. That is not a smooth surface.
Nope.
So when we think of that, maybe that based on that occupancy and combining all those effects, it's sprinklered. We have that different construction up top. Maybe now we're focused on our lateral or horizontal movement, right? You have products on shelves burning across. You have some sprinklers, hopefully, that are keeping that in check. So it's not just being, always doing something for the sake of doing it.
Yeah.
We still have to take into consideration the way the building was built and what it's being used for, because that's going to affect how we ultimately get in and flow water to some extent. So.
What's an example from your career of when you had to break out the big guns and you had to go with the biggest monitor you got, and you got to make sure you got the right supply? Just tell me about
Yes.
like the diesel side of things, water flow wise.
Yes. So we had a scenario. This is probably 20 years ago. Of course, Murphy's Law. It's either the hottest day or coldest day of the year. This was the hottest, most humid day of the year. Super strong winds, and there were 3 very large homes. One in the center under construction, and then 2 on either side of it. And these are large houses, probably in the neighborhood of 7,000 square feet, roughly. But it was just one of those things that didn't take long. We showed up on scene. All 3 are fully involved. So, like dead end hydrant loop. So now you got to be really careful with how much water you're flowing, where are you flowing it, where do you start. So that was probably the most
How did you overcome
difficult in terms of water.
it? You had 1 hydrant and you had to put out 3 houses. I mean,
So we ended up getting another good hydrant down the street kind of thing. But it was basically back to apparatus positioning. The way those vehicles parked at the beginning, it had a big impact on how we could use them long term. So that was a really interesting one, because we've learned a lot from those types of incidents. We've learned a lot from, even the idea of like big fire, big water. We know a lot more about that now than we did then. So that particular fire was a good one for the deck gun.
okay, deck gun,
kind of
not
thing.
ground. Did you set ground monitors down and leave those, or what did you do?
We used deck guns there and ultimately elevated master streams. So we have used the portable ground monitors, like Blitz Fire as an example. But it's back to how do we do that appropriately, right? So if we're just flowing water in through a window on this horizontal plane, we might not be getting that water even close to where it needs to go. So even like the portable ground monitor, taking advantage of how it's built, we can get it close, we can dial that up back to steep, steady, and straight.
Yeah.
And now we can, again, use that to coat and cool surfaces. And what we've also found in a lot of scenarios is it's really about, again, getting the right water in the right place at the right time. So even if we're really quick with our like 1 3/4 hand lines, we can do a lot of good by getting that mobile line in place quickly. But yeah, the duck gun stuff is impressive. We've had a number of instances where that was the only choice, but those are impressive calls, obviously.
So how did all 3 houses, A, catch fire, and then B, get fully involved? Like, did they, like, were they very close together?
So they're fairly close together, and I don't know honestly what caused that.
Or arson?
particular
I mean,
incident.
how would, yeah, it's bizarre,
I know it wasn't.
yeah.
I know it wasn't a suspicious fire in any way,
Okay.
shape, or form. I think it had more to do with the house under construction and maybe
Wow.
something being left on or whatever the case is.
Crazy. 3
But I don't-
houses in a row.
Yeah, and it was, again, with the winds the way they were that day,
Wind. Wow.
a slightly delayed notification. It didn't take long for that to be such a big incident.
Oh my gosh. You've been awesome. Your voice is evidence of how hard you've worked this week.
Oh yeah,
It's hanging in there,
trying
though.
to project. I'm trying to project.
It sounds good. Last thing I want to ask you about is, FSRI is, has rebranded transitional attack to exterior water application, external water attack. Yeah, just tell me your thoughts on what's the biggest misconception about EWA or transitional attack.
So I love that it's been renamed, because now it's what are you doing and where are you doing it. So exterior fire control or interior fire control. Is it a door initiated search or a window initiated search? Right? So that's kind of what the concept behind that. I think the biggest misconception behind that the what was called transitional attack and became, hit it hard from the yard or whatever it was, is that it was very passive by nature. And I think the concept is if we were to talk about what aggressive looks like, and in my world, what aggressive looks like is people getting off a truck with a purpose and being as fast and professional as possible. That goes for our water application, it goes for forcible entry, it goes for search. So how does that all get pieced together? And that's really what we do. We run a lot of time to task drills, first arriving time to task. So while somebody is forcing a door, we have somebody masking up, and we have somebody flowing water. So we don't want to build in this 2, 3, 4 minute delay. If there's an opportunity to put water where it needs to go, we're going to do it. And again, the biggest reason we're doing it is for the people that may be inside of that structure. And I think that gets back to the misconception of you can't flow water from the outside to the inside if there's somebody in there. And that's not true. So as long as we're following those rules, a straight stream, steep, steady, that is not going to happen. We're minimizing air entrainment, but we're maximizing water distribution and surface cooling. So you can flow water from the outside to the inside and it still be aggressive and still be quick. We're not talking about posting this person up on a lawn chair for 30 minutes. We're talking about, potentially as little as 15 to 30 seconds of water application. And if we can do it appropriately, it's only going to be better for the property we're there to protect and the people that we're there to save. So that's...
Man, well, Jesse, you are a champ. You've been talking for the last, you got here on Sunday, I think, so now we're on Friday, and you've just been given 100% effort, and we're so thrilled that you chose to come by and share some wisdom, and just, can't thank you enough. Is there anything that you were hoping to talk about today that we didn't get a chance to cover?
No, I really appreciate it. My only advice would be, again, back to whatever your organization uses, just be good at using it. And it's simple stuff. It's simple stuff, and what the choreographing of those first 2 minutes looks like has a big impact. Last thing, this would be the wisdom I'd have, is I sat through one of the classes this week by Keith Stakes, and it was the Residential Fireground Playbook. There was no greater common denominator for the speed of transition we say is the enemy of regrowth. So we flow water from the outside to get to the inside. We don't want these gaps. There was no bigger predictor of success in those scenarios. They took everything: height, weight, age, seniority, all of those things. The number one predictor of success was when was the last time you trained on that skill. So that is a takeaway.
Wow.
We can't let these big gaps go to doing basic training, flowing water, forcing doors, putting our masks on. Those are perishable skills. We need to keep them going.
Man, all right, well, somebody get this guy a beer. He deserves it. And really hope we get a chance to come visit you in Northville and see what you're doing in Metro Detroit.
Love to have you guys. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks so much, Jesse.
Thanks.
Curious to learn more about TFT nozzles? Check out the new sortable nozzle page at tft.com/shop.